In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the new and improved State Line Chaplains podcast. We have some exciting changes to the podcast, and this is the official rebranding of the podcast. We are now the Ogle County Peer Support Network podcast. That's a mouthful. Ogle County Peer Support Network. And I'm big on mission statements and a goal, if you will, a statement to help rally us around a common goal. And the goal for this podcast is to be a trusted voice and a resource for our department, for the Ogle County Sheriff's Office here in northern Illinois. We want to be a trusted voice and a resource also for first responders throughout our county and beyond. So we will do our very best to become a trusted voice and resource for you. And before we get to our first guest, Taylor Burke is our very first official guest on the podcast, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have Taylor as our guest. 7 years ago, I was honored to do the wedding of Mr. and Mrs. Burke, and what a great experience that was. Taylor, ever since she was a young girl, had said I was going to do her wedding, and as a cute little girl, now she's a cute little girl who's older, I thought, oh, ain't that cute? Because I have a lot of people tell me, you're going to do my wedding when I grow up. It's like, okay, well, we'll see. But I actually did do her wedding. So welcome, everybody. We're so excited, and just a few things, a little background for National Telecommunicator Week. So the Telecommunicators Week is held annually during the second week of April to honor public safety telecommunicators for their commitment, service, and sacrifice. And, they receive calls from anything to everything. And really, that is the first voice that you hear, the first contact that is made is with the telecommunicator. And I got to tell you, I've been in the dispatch center, I don't know if we call it the control room, control central, dispatch center, whatever we call it. I've been there and watched our telecommunicators in action. And I got to tell you, I consider Taylor to be a natural. It's almost like I think she was born for this. And I could never do what you guys do. I don't know how you do it, and you stay so calm, and you're talking to me, and you're talking to each other, but then you got the headset on, and you know exactly when to what you're doing. I'm like, I would go nuts in there. So I'm so grateful that I don't have to do that. But just a little history here that we pulled off the internet. National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week was founded to honor the telecommunication personnel dedicating their lives to public safety. It was a local initiative that originally was set up in 1981, the year I graduated high school, by Patricia Anderson of Contra Costa County, which later went on to become a nationwide week-long event. Now, there's quite an interesting backstory that I don't think I'm going to get into because it is lengthy, and I think we'll just skip that, but you can always look it up online, and you'll be just as amazed as I was. Here in the studio with me, by the way, we are here, our new studio is here at the Public Safety Building in Ogle County. How exciting is this? This really adds an official flair to this. And as we're recording here, it is pouring rain out there, so I'm glad we're indoors and not outside. But Taylor Burke, you have been a dispatcher for the Sheriff's Office for over 4 years now. And this segment is going to be aired during National Telecommunicators Week. So first and foremost, thank you for doing such an important job for the community and the Sheriff's Office. And my first question to you as we launch into this is, what inspired you to get into this line of work?
Well, some of you don't know this, but my dad has been a firefighter for 35 years, paramedic, firefighter. So that had always drawn my attention growing up. I actually didn't even think I would ever be a dispatcher. So I wanted to be a paramedic just like my dad and be going to like flight med school and all that. And So this kind of like fell into my lap, but like you said, it's the beginning of my career. So something that I see myself doing for, until I can retire, which is 62.
62. Wow.
Just a few more years then?
Yeah, exactly. I did get my EMT right after high school, so I did kind of see like the other side of things, and that always interested me and to continue on. So I feel like I'm very strong suited when it comes to the medical side of things.
I agree, you are. I can vouch for you there. And so it's kind of, and I'm going out of order, but I just thought this next question fits in better than at the end. So you're following some very large footprints of mom and dad in public service.
Yes.
And so I like to look at it this way. It kind of gets in the blood. It's just who you are, and it's in the fabric of who you are. So how has that affected your career choice? Did you just feel like, well, I didn't have much of a choice, or it was there to do?
I feel like more it was just there to do. And like you said, like you had said, I was natural at it. I feel that it's like, what else would I do? Like I think like if I didn't choose this, I can't think of it. I can't even tell you what I would go and do because I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, and this is just, my thinking here. So would you say to other telecommunicators that this is not just a job, it is a calling?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because when I first even applied, like, even when I applied, that was like out of nowhere. It was like I applied, I remember it was like July 12th, exactly. And then it was like, oh, I'm going to go sit in like the next day. And I'm like, just like, wow, like this is all that they do, all the stuff that they do, which I did not know, I mean, I've talked to dispatchers, obviously working on the ambulance and everything, but I'm like, man, they do way more than just talk to me, so it's like, it's just crazy. So.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you to take us through a typical day in your life, I mean, obviously I don't want you to say anything that you shouldn't, but can you take us through a typical day in your life?
So like my life at work, like when I have a typical work day?
We know you have the picture perfect fairy book life at home. We know.
That's right. So, like we get passed on from our night shift. So any incidents that would come back during the day, people would call about, or any questions, we would, they kind of fill us in on what happened overnight. And then we have multiple programs that we have to log into. We log on to 911 and, we don't know when a 911 is going to call in. So it could be, 2 seconds after I log in, it could be a couple hours later, but in between all of that, we take admin calls, traffic stops, talk to our police officers if they're out doing anything. And then, one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is we are a smaller agency, and so we do it all. So we we dispatch police, we dispatch fire, we dispatch ambulance, and all while we're talking on the phone. So like bigger agencies, they have separate, police, fire, and call takers.
Right.
So we do that all while being on the phone. And so I think the general public doesn't know that. But we also, we have other duties too, like paperwork. We have like warrants that will enter into the system, orders of protections, and we deal with sex offender files that we all deal with throughout the day. So we're doing all of that, in our 12-hour shift.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've often thought of that because I've visited other dispatch centers and other agencies, other cities and all, and I was always, in fact, I think you know my story. I'm not from a small town. I was born and raised out in the shadows of New York City, so I know I've lost a lot of my New York accent and attitude because I want to blend. I'm a good blender. But I've always been impressed with the fact that in a larger department, to some extent, things are somewhat easier. For example, patient contact is a lot more in a smaller community. And as you said, you're doing a little bit of everything, really.
Right.
And I'm just amazed at everything that you do and can do, and you do it effortlessly. And I know internally you're probably maybe sweating every once in a while, but I just really am impressed, and I don't say that lightly. And it's just like for me as a small town pastor in a church, it's like I do everything, and sometimes it is overwhelming, and you do feel tired, and it's easy to get burned out, and you just need a break once in a while. But you do it very well, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. So professional too.
Well, thank you.
Very professional. In the next month, you're going to be going through the training to join 2 other coworkers in being a wellness instructor. So historically, physical and mental health has not been a focus of concern for first responders across the country. I know that this is true from my family, my law enforcement family back in the day. This was not even heard of, even after some of my relatives were involved in what we call shootouts, with fatalities. Different things that they got involved in, and there was nothing in place to help them deal with the stress and the anxiety that follows. And we've come a long way, and now it really is recognized as perhaps the most significant concern. What are you hoping to both get from the Officer Wellness Program, as well as giving to your fellow coworkers as someone that they would go to for advice? What do you can you comment on that?
So I kind of, like the last probably 4 years, I've been very interested in my physical health. My parents' health is not the greatest, and so that's kind of eye-opening as I'm getting older. And so I have joined a CrossFit gym that I have, it's me versus myself. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I get better each day? All right, so when I go there, I'm clearing my mind. It's, I don't think about anything mentally when I'm there, other than okay, we're going to do this today. So it's kind of it definitely, for me, that's my coping mechanism of anything when I'm stressed out. I go there, one of the trainers there is, I don't know if you know Amber Doc, but she was, she went to war and everything like that. And so she has helped me tremendously when it comes to, now I'm working for a law enforcement agency. It's like, okay, well, I had a crappy day today, so I'm here. I showed up, and so the wellness instructor program, I'm looking forward to being more of how she was to me, a mentor to our other coworkers, to even just talking. I'm a talker, so that's naturally to me. And so, but even if they're hey, I want to get better at this, I want to come to you with, nutrition, working out, anything that I can help them with. The saying is what? The well-oiled machine. We're all machines. Our bodies are machines. So if we can take care of it, it's going to last us longer and everything like that. And so I guess that's my advice for them, is to be more of a mentor to them on that.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice. And to be a mentor and looking at taking our physical health seriously, that's our responsibility.
Right.
You can mandate certain things in an agency.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they mandate. Okay, you do the first test, right, when you're going to be in patrol, for instance. We'll talk about that. And they do their test, but then do they keep up on it? I know some of our deputies for sure do, but I was they can come to me and be like, hey, I'm no fitness instructor by any means, but hopefully this class will give me a more well-rounded, to be there for them.
Well, and, I just think about when we were in school, how we had physical education and different things that we did in school. And, the idea, too, is that it is an important part of our life. And it is sad to see people become so stressed out, so burdened, so busy that I don't have time to work out.
Yeah.
And I know plenty of folks who just make no time for physical fitness.
You and I both have the same 24 hours in a day.
Yes, we do.
So it's it's how are you going to manage it? You have to make that, even if it's 30 minutes. Yeah. Danielle, Chief, has been awesome when it's come to, she's like, what can I get you guys that, would help you?
Right.
And, she had offered to get us a treadmill to room. Well, okay, hey, I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to go walk real quick on the treadmill. Like, she's been great about that. And, we have people now that can, like, give us, like, a little 10-minute break and everything. So that's been great. So.
Yeah. Here in the studio, our new studio here at the Public Safety Complex, we have Chief Lewis here. And Chief and I have attended a fair amount of training. And really, we became interested in helping first responders stay safe, but also to stay healthy and to help offset this ongoing crisis among first responders of death by suicide. And in all these classes and all these things, there's a common thread, and there's the physical component, there's the spiritual or emotional component. It all works together. It has to work together because we are more than just flesh and blood.
Right.
We have a soul. But have you ever noticed that people have different levels of like either a positive attitude and outlook on life or a very negative one? And I gravitate toward people who are more positive. I want to hang out with people that are positive rather than the people that are always down on everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But so the next question here, Taylor, can you elaborate and just talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced in this profession? And for anyone listening who might currently be dealing with those same challenges or will in the future, are there positive ways that you're able to cope with these stressors?
Well, a couple things back to what I had said, like one of my coping mechanisms is going to the gym, but not only that is, I can't thank my coworkers enough. And I know sometimes I don't tell them that. But if we have a tough call or a tough day, even if it's just like little stuff that built up throughout the day, we kind of debrief to each other, like just how you and I are having a conversation now, like, hey, can you believe that happened? Like, and for me, that's enough. Now, not everybody is like that. I kind of take pride in, I leave here and I'm just like, it's not that I am not thinking about what happened, but I'm not thinking about what happened. You know what I mean? Like, I leave for the day. I've got
take it home.
Yeah, I've got stuff at home. Like, my brain's already on to the next thing. Like, okay, I got laundry to do, dishes to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like I'm already on. But and then the next day if we come in, we're like, hey, can you still believe that happened yesterday or whatever? And we kind of just talk it out. But another thing too is my husband. Yeah. He's also a law enforcement officer, so he understands. So if I have tough calls or anything, him, so he's kind of like same thing, like work is work, home is home.
Yeah.
But hey, today I got to tell you this.
Yep.
And then he just is like, all right, well, it'll be okay, and then that's kind of it, which is great because that's for me, like I said, that's all I need, and I'm like, all right, thank you for letting me get that off my chest.
Yeah, that's important to have that, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I feel like I was kind of like that for him prior to me being in this career, but now I have like a even better understanding.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, wow, you guys go and do some crazy stuff that I couldn't imagine going in and doing. So.
Well, and oftentimes I think we just take things for granted too, and and I certainly this is not about the chaplain, but the chaplain is exposed to the same sights, sounds, smells, and horrors. And, I know for me personally that I usually do a pretty good job of managing my stress and dealing with it. And people jokingly say, well, you have God. It's like, well, I know, but I'm also a human. And so I do the same thing. There's times when I just need to get it off my chest too. And I don't just talk to anybody. You can't. You can't do that. You automatically, I think we all know the people that we feel we can trust, or you just naturally are inclined to say, hey, I'm okay talking to this person because I trust them, I like them. So it's important to have those people in our lives. But I just a little backstory. I can always remember my grandfather starting our our family's legacy in law enforcement. And, as a kid, I mean, I said to my family, I always want to have my grandfather in that position of being my childhood hero. I don't want to know too much.
Right.
And I was told by several sources, they said, we appreciate, that this is your grandfather and he's special and so forth. But he was also a tough street cop, and a few heads met the hood of the squad car because of your grandfather. And it's like, well, that's my grandfather. So I didn't care what he did. I didn't care what anybody said about him. I knew and loved him as my grandfather. And every time he came home, and I was there quite a bit when he would come home. I mean, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and it was always about family. Family is the priority, and I didn't know any better. I didn't know any different, and I didn't want to. And it is possible to leave an amazing legacy for your family. It is possible for people to not remember Taylor as, she was always cranky and stressed out and never had time for us, and but it's like, no, that's mom, or that's my daughter, that's my wife, and how important it is to keep those things straight in our head. But my next question, and this a little bit, so when people try to deal with stress on their own, which most people do, it can sometimes take years to figure out the best way to manage that stress. One of the goals of peer support and officer wellness is to talk more openly about these things so that each person doesn't have to figure it out on their own. Sharing what we all have learned through training or years of trial and error can be a huge benefit for new first responders. Is there anything that you learned along the way that you wish someone had told you years ago?
Well, it's funny that this is the question, because we just had one of our new dispatchers she just started and went through training. Mm-hmm. She had a pretty tough call, and I think it was probably her first really bad 911 call. And I'm not her trainer. I'm her coworker. I'm there to help her and everything. And I looked at her and I said to her, get up and go walk, go drive, go somewhere, take a break, because at that time after, she wasn't going to comprehend anything that was going to happen next. So I was like, right now, not to say she was useless, but it's like, okay, right now your brain can't take anymore. Right. You need to go and do something and come back when you're ready. And she came back and she was like, thank you. And I was like, I wish someone would have told me that a couple times, like, hey, you can go take a break real quick. And I've noticed in the last couple people that we've hired, it has definitely gotten better with that, which is great, because like you said, like the other question before, this hasn't been a concern before.
Right.
And I think that sometimes telecommunicators they're not in that group either as like patrolmen. But we are, because we're hearing it. We don't get to see it, which I think's almost worse that we're only hearing it at times, because I'm like, man.
Because of the mental pictures that you
and you're
there.
Like, what is actually happening? What does this actually look like? And at times your mind could probably paint a picture 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you're like, you go there and you're like, oh, well, they just had a scratch on him or something. That was it. No.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you gotta think of it like that. So.
Is it true, if I were to say this to you, this is just me ad-libbing here.
Are you allowed to do that?
I don't know. I mean, we have a beautiful script. It was professionally crafted by an obvious professional who someday is going to make a good chaplain herself. We won't mention any names. But is it true, Taylor, that, I mean, I think of your situation, okay, and you get the phone call. So you get the process started. But when the phone call ends, do you ever feel like you get closure?
I mean, that's where I feel like you have to have a good rapport with your fire, your police, so you can be like, hey, can I ask you a question? And honestly, most of them, I can't name one who wouldn't tell you. Like, and then we'll talk about it too. So it's kind of like we have our own debriefing. Like, you were on scene, I was on the phone. Like, hey, and which is. I feel like you have to have that.
Yeah.
And a lot of places don't. They don't even talk to their police after calls, like bigger agencies and stuff, which I can't imagine that. I'm like,
Yeah.
let me
Even-
befriend you then.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I need to know, you
Even
know.
some smaller agencies, when your dad was dispatching at
Yeah.
our department back then, the ready room was off limits for everyone.
And I think that's how some agencies still are.
Yeah. And they were in there by themselves for that 12 hours.
Right.
Are you guys 12s?
Yeah, we're 12s.
They went back and forth. They had 8-hour shifts, and sometimes they had 12-hour shifts. But that was the biggest thing. I can remember after a large fire, because I was head of the dispatch center at that time, we did police, fire, and EMS. And just go up there and talk to them for a little bit, because and it was amazing, like you just said, the picture that they had painted
Yeah.
compared to what it really was. And they were by themselves. That there was just one radio
Right.
operator. So if you had to go to the toilet or
Like, I'll be right back.
yeah, hang on, so it was very. And my wife was dispatcher as well, and I know that she'd come home a lot of times, and with, for instance, I know had a person call in that was going to take their life, and he said, "I've got a scanner, I can hear everything you say, don't send the cops," etc. And you can about imagine you're by yourself,
You're like,
all of this is going on, and you know that individual.
mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of times, I would imagine, for you, when somebody calls in, there's oftentimes that you know who that is on the other end of the line that's having the worst day of their lives.
Well, and it's funny that you said the scanner thing, because they will say that to us. And I'm like, well, you're asking for help, but you don't want help. So how am I supposed to send help to you? And you feel, and you're like, just talk to me for a second,
Yeah.
and you have to get, them out of their own head,
And that was one of the things I was going to mention. Your ability to talk someone down, to calm them down, is a necessity in that. And you can't see what they're seeing.
Right.
You're just you're painting that picture in your own head and trying to think what you're going to be able to say next to them. It's an awesome skill. And I
Yeah.
think too, it's a divine call to be successful in that, like what
Yeah.
you are. I believe it's a divine call.
Yeah. It's, I always said at first, I remember going home to my husband, I'm like, I can't do this. And I was in training. I was like, I was bawling. I'm like, I cannot do this. And he's like, you know what? You're fine. You're going to go back tomorrow. It's a different day. And I was like, man, he was right, because, the next day, was I a little mad probably still at whatever had happened, which I can't even remember what it was, but I was like, he is right. Today's a new day, a whole new, different calls that are coming in, and because you don't know.
You really don't, and it's
You
hard.
aren't given a schedule at the beginning of your shift.
It'd kind of be nice,
John's
right?
calling in at 10:07.
Well, you
No,
don't
I
know,
don't-
like
I don't
just
think
like
it
the nature of calls, which I feel like our county is fortunate,
Yeah.
and I'll just leave it at that, because we're blessed to be, like, I'm blessed to work in the county that I work in, because there's other agencies that I'm like, I go to trainings and they're talking about double homicides every single day, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I don't know how do you do it, because I don't think I've ever had that. Thankfully, but
Yeah, we are very fortunate, but in saying that, Chief and I and your dad and I mean, we've worked together in many different calls, and of course me as chaplain, providing that support, but through the years, and it's been 25 years for me serving as a chaplain. I'm amazed at the different calls, and the amount of tragedy that we've had as well. And you're like, wow, where does all that trauma go in you? It builds up in you, and recall. I mean, you could recall.
Well, and what you said too, like, I think one of you said earlier, the smaller community, this just popped in my head, but like, as a community, if something tragically happens,
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of also like mourn with them,
Right.
So it's kind of like, yeah, you get closure, because you asked me if I get closure, but you get closure in that aspect, like, okay, yep, here now the community's coming together if something happened, that was horrible, but and then you just kind of like not move on, but you're like, okay, now I've got closure from that call finally, you know, or whatever. And
Yeah, and closure, I mean, closure is an important part of staying healthy. The things that are left open-ended, but also things that you can't fix. You know, that's a hard one to deal with. Things that you can't change, you want to, and you know, I'm just struck with the fact that how listening to your voice when you are on the radio, and how calm and just professional, and maybe there are some times when internally you're just like amped up, but it never comes across in the way you communicate.
do you have a scanner? Are you listening to me?
Oh, Roberto Uno has a radio.
There's some times where, you know, one of our deputies is like, I know when it's serious, your voice changes. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. I guess I did that. But so I try to, because that is actually really hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And even in like your first year, I feel like people don't realize like you're listening out of only one ear. So like you have to train your ear, then to have your split ear listen to everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're like, I have to project this on the radio and tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
But I can't get excited, you know, because then they're going to know something's either wrong or they're like, what's happening in there?
And you can't present a novel.
No. You're going to be like, quick to the point. This is what's going on. I need to go,
Concise.
you know?
Yeah.
Accurate.
Well, that's funny, because on the other end of the phone, the person can be panicked and just, you know, off the chart. And then you find out, well, they got a hangnail. And it's like, we got to send EMS because their nail, you know. And I've learned through the years, too, that people, because I'm a chaplain and a pastor, people instantly want to get me engaged or want me to do something. And, you know, you need to go, you need to be there, you need to do this. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I haven't yet heard, I'm listening to the radio traffic so I know what's going on. Mm-hmm. A chaplain doesn't need to be everywhere. And if a chaplain is called into a situation, usually that's not an indicator that people are having a great day.
Right.
Usually it's pretty bad. So I do really respect and value what you do, and I listen for the tonation, the inflections, and I can remember, and without saying too terribly much, years ago, you guys may recall, something had happened with one of the city police officers, and the call came in as officer down. An officer down. And immediately everybody went to, oh my God, everybody went flying to the address.
Right.
And it turned out to be something a little different than what was originally thought, because, I mean, the way you get a call, the way you receive a call, you have to sort through that and figure out, okay, wait a minute. You got to get help coming, but you can't just fly off the handle either. And that's why I totally respect the fact that you all are able to just navigate, figure it out, and get the correct information out there, so that now the resources can determine, especially like a guy like me, I'm like, okay, I'm a resource for you, but I can't run to everything and be in full panic mode, like, oh my God, it's the end of the world.
Right.
If it were the end of the world, I can envision you saying, Robert, the end of the world is here. Would you please respond at your convenience? But do not expedite. Take your time.
So we can record a session real quick, because we would have to talk about, okay, today's the day, right?
Yes.
So come to the public safety building.
Come to the public safety building. And, you know, nowadays you've got a lot of people asking, is this the end of the world, or things? Hey, well, I'll tell you what, we're probably closer than we've ever been. But we know that if the end comes in our lifetime, that you're going to be the calm voice on the other end. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got another important question here to ask. I don't want to forget this one. And we don't often talk about the sacrifices made by the family of first responders. And this podcast is for them too, for the families. With shift work, birthdays, and holidays are often celebrated on different days. Sporting events, extracurriculars are missed. It cannot be overstated how important it is to have the understanding and support of family. We got to just say, listen, family, thank you, thank you, thank you. Taylor, is there anything you'd like to say specifically to your family?
Well, obviously, thank you. But at the same time, they kind of not chose this career too, but they're used to it, you know, because my dad, and then I went to the hospital and worked in the hospital and still worked shift work, Christmas, 4th of July, all all that, so they're kind of used to it, which is probably sad to say, but they understand. So they have an understanding of it, and they're like, okay, we'll just see you on Saturday then, and we just switch our plans and whatever we're doing, and it's kind of like no questions asked. They get it. So
that doesn't happen in some families.
No, I feel like that's kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
Well, but like your family and your family both are first responder families too, so they kind of were like, okay, yeah, Chief's got to work the fire station. You got to, what are you going to say,
Yeah.
Christmas will be on Saturday.
Exactly, yeah. Santa comes Saturday.
That's something that in other professions, I mean, they just really don't get that or understand it. And so, do you think we have a responsibility then to go over above and beyond, really, to just make our families feel valued and special, like special considerations, things that we can do for our families to say, listen, you are the family of a first responder, so we want you to have preferential treatment. I feel that way. And I don't know what we could do better in that area, but, just communication for one. Hey, I really appreciate you. And communication from command or our administrators, I think, goes a long way too, where, hey, we just want to say thank you. We know it's not easy. We really appreciate you sharing your wife or your husband, your son, your daughter. It means so much to us. Not take it for granted.
Right.
I know we get used to it, but we shouldn't get used to it.
Right. You're right.
So.
And I feel like now, my kids are young, and so I haven't really hit the sporting, the birthdays this year was probably the first time. She just turned 6, and I'm like, I have to work your birthday, but she had to go to school anyway. So she's like, okay, well, can we celebrate on, Friday? And she wanted to go to Texas Roadhouse. I was yes, we will.
We will.
Whatever you want, so it's kind of like, so I haven't hit that too much, but I feel like when I do, it'll be a little heartbreaking. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And how do we get ready for that? And how do we do that? And, it's been so many years now. I mean, it's like, you kind of expect your family just to deal with it and understand it. But so we say that what you do is a calling, and I believe that it is. It's a calling.
Definitely.
And there's no doubt about it. But then wouldn't it be safe to say that it's a calling for our family as well?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean,
because they have to, put up with us.
Oh, there is a great deal of sacrifice for the family as well.
Sure.
And how they handle that, especially, I know in my instance, we both started at the same time,
right.
And she went several months beyond where I went, but those sacrifices, she would be off for Christmas most times, and sometimes when I was on shift, it's not going to be on that day that time,
right.
And it seems like when you're on shift, it seems like it always happens on your shift.
Yes.
And then when I got off shift, I remember the first Christmas that I was going to be off shift. I was working days, and we're all sitting down, we're opening up presents. Tone goes off for a fire.
I knew you were going to say that. I literally knew you were going to say that.
Get up and then Christine,
and of course you wouldn't go.
So Christine just tells them that somebody is having a real bad day right now, and your dad is going to go help them. And look where Mark is now. I
right.
mean,
and they probably were like, "Wow, my dad's so cool." Like,
I don't know how cool they ever thought it was.
Oh, stop! No, he followed your footsteps. I think that they definitely looked up to you for sure. And I feel like that's how my daughter is too. My dad, she, it's funny. She always says, well, Mom, I know you're the sheriff. And I'm letting her, as long as I can go.
Yeah, yeah.
Sheriff Envicle does know she says that. So I'm like, yes, but, I answer the phone and I talk to the police and I talk to the fire. So I have to tell her, but it cracks me up that I know. Yeah, Dad's a police officer and you're the sheriff. She literally told her kindergarten teacher that.
That is very cute.
I felt blessed.
Yes, very cute. Yeah, it's funny how, thinking about Chief Lewis and how now he has a son who is a deputy chief at the Mount Morris Fire Department. And, it stays, it is a calling on the family. But it becomes your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a whole separate lifestyle, and it's a culture within a culture. Maybe we can even say it's like a closed community because it's only open to a very few. Not everybody's going to be invited in or gets it. And, I just have to go back to my own memories where growing up, really we were maybe, I want to say 35 miles from Times Square, New York City, so in close proximity. So we were considered a suburban community. And, being a part of a law enforcement family there, I felt, and this is just my own remembrance, is that we were the center of the known universe. Nobody else, we had it, we had it going on, and it meant that there were sacrifices and you had to make concessions. And it meant that there were some hazards and dangers, which, we never really talked about. When you have loved ones who are involved in an actual shootout, one of my cousins was chasing some bank robbers through the city, and they started shooting at him. So he's returning fire as he's driving. Those things are dangerous and hazardous to your health. I had
good television.
Well, it makes for good. Yeah. Yes, it makes good television.
And movies.
Oh yes. I remember.
But when you get in the reality of that happening with you at the center of everything, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. It's interesting because this is the new and improved podcast of the Ogle County Peer Support Network podcast, and peer support really is just about being there for one another. Mm-hmm. It's just doing what we're doing. We're just talking, and like I say, we want to be that trusted voice and a resource where I know. Your dad and I have had many conversations, debriefings through the years, and I've been on some pretty difficult calls, and I've seen your dad in action quite a bit. Of course, now he's more toward the retirement part of things. And Chief Lewis, I just remember observing and watching him on scene as well. But you're the voice, you're the one that gets everything going in that direction. And I remember hearing from a dispatcher in another community who was under a very heavy load of guilt because she had sent one of, quote unquote, her officers into harm's way, who ended up being shot. Mm-hmm. And she said, I sent him there. I was the one that sent him to his demise. And that's a tough one. What do you say to something like that?
I don't even, thankfully I haven't experienced that, but it's like, we don't know.
Right.
Not to sound, hopefully that's not a dumb answer, but it's like we don't know what's going on. Right. We're just getting whatever the caller had said.
Yeah.
We're giving the information to the officer, and that's an unfortunate event, obviously, but was the caller telling us everything that was actually happening? Because I feel like sometimes that definitely happens. Like they're like, oh, well, they're fighting. Oh, they're fighting, but they have guns. Like we ask them, oh no, I don't see any guns, but they actually have guns or knives or. Or cars trying to run people over. That happens.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, did they paint the picture for us where we're like, hey, this is actually probably step it up and be more cautious. You wish you could tell your officer that, but
yeah,
we're just going based off the information that we're given. So she shouldn't hold guilt, but I think I'd be the same way if I.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it's great that you have the relationship that you have within your dispatch center, where you can see that somebody is, because you're gonna recognize that with the other ones that are there with you. If they received that call and they sent the officer, that maybe you send them out for a short hiatus or whatever,
right?
And then talk to them later. I really love that concept of how you guys have done that, and that's because you care.
And it is because we care, but it's like you said earlier, like we're human. Right. We're not just like, okay, yep, this is what happens and this is this is our job. No, like we actually think about it too. Like, okay,
And that part really you don't get trained on either.
No.
Those are things that you pick up on your own because you do care.
and it's kind of how you said the family also is a calling. I feel like there's like 4 or 5 of us that are all dispatchers that all have someone in our family as a first responder. And it's kind of like, you're like, oh, so they would, it's kind of like a unspoken understanding for each other. Like, hey, you good? And they're like, yeah, I'm good. You're good? Okay, we're good. You know, so it's like, but then we'll talk about, you know, whatever had transpired, but.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? And I know this is a catchphrase nowadays where we use, hey, it's okay not to be okay. And I'm a little bit reluctant to just jump on the bandwagon in using some of these catchphrases, but I'm perfectly comfortable and I'm okay when I say to somebody, hey, you good? No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not doing okay. I'm not doing good at all.
But then I want you to tell me why you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if that, maybe I'm just jumping the gun on that. I'm like, hey, all right, well, why are you if you told me that, I'd be like, why?
Why?
Let's
Why?
sit and have a chat.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
you know,
That's very important because for some people, it's like,
yeah.
You know, they're
And if
gonna
you
back
shut me
away.
down, then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Mike doesn't want to talk today. I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll talk to me tomorrow.
Right.
no.
Right.
He still says no.
Yeah, the decompression time. I mean, I had wanted to just speak to, and we've got time for this. Just having the treadmill in the dispatch center there, and I remember many of my trainings that I've taken to help. It's always pretty much the same thing. That okay, you get this release of stress chemicals, and it just kind of surges through your body, and those chemicals take a little bit of time to dissipate.
Right.
Exercise facilitates that and helps it. So a lot of times, I've been known to just say, "Hey, come take a walk with me while we're talking."
Yeah.
So you're actually moving while you're talking, and there's just any number of little things that we can do where people don't even have to know what you're doing, And now, of course, it's great that you have that in your room there. But boy, I'll tell you, this morning was one of those mornings for me too, where it's just been so hectic lately, and I got up extra early because I knew the grandkids were getting dropped off. My wife was going to have to take them to school. We had to get them ready, and we had so much going on. But I got up so that I could do at least 1 mile on my treadmill. Wasn't great. I mean, like, oh my God, I did no, but you know what? It got things going, and it helped me. And really, I think that, and I know how you're feeling, and we've talked about the health part of it, and I'm just so excited that this has become more of a priority lately for many of us. We have to encourage one another. That we owe that to ourselves.
100%.
100%, and we are the best investment that we can make is into ourselves, because if we fail, if we break down, then we're good for nobody.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out a way, you, Taylor, and the rest of the crew team, rest of your team, how do we keep you healthy and keep your heads clear? It has to be a priority because we need you. We need you to stay calm. We need you to be clear-headed. And that's everybody's job. I think it's everybody's job. We have to look out for one another.
Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons why we have a department chaplain now. And of course,
Thank God.
We've often said, Chief and I have talked about it, that the chaplain is one of the most underutilized resources because we don't know how to use a chaplain. But you'd be surprised at how much it helps just having a different voice to listen to, a different perspective, and how many times, and you and I have talked about it, we didn't know if we should, call you, dispatch you, whatever, and it's like, when in doubt, call me out.
Isn't it crazy, though, to think about before you were actually officially the chaplain, but you had stopped in, and I'm like, you popped in my head how many times. Yeah. And it's like, now it's like full circle. Like, now here you are.
Here we are. It's crazy how this all works. And it's been, I told, many people, but Chief knows, I mean, this is one of the most rewarding things that I've been a part of because you get to help people, genuinely help them. You may never get a thank you. People may never recognize you. I don't need recognition. I don't need awards. I just need to know that I brought a little bit of light into someone's darkness.
Right.
And that's what you do. The voice on the end of you are that light. I look at you as that voice that, listen, you are their lifeline, their connection to help. You're going to get resources coming. I'm here to talk you through it. I'll be with you. And I'm sure, there've been times you've had to walk people through CPR.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be heart-wrenching.
And I feel like it's weird. Sandy Bido always was like, I know when Taylor's doing CPR. And I was like, why? And she's like, because you're tapping your foot. But it's like, I feel like I have to be there, because I've given someone CPR. So it's like, I have to like physically also do it with them as I'm like typing on the computer. But you're like, when they're like, they're blue. Okay, well, are they choking? No. Are they breathing? No. But people think when they're breathing that, no, is their chest actually going up and down? People don't realize that. Like, they're like, I don't know. No, look at their chest. Is it rising and falling? No. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. And what's shocking, though, is a lot of people refuse.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember,
Yeah.
And you're just like, what?
And but now you've got to take a whole different posture on how you're talking to them, still keeping them calm, and maybe they'll relent. You just never know. And that's difficult because it would be similar to tying your hands behind your back,
right?
Being in another room, and then being on a phone or a radio talking to somebody in the next room, trying to guide them through a process. Try it.
Yeah, right. Takes practice. That's why we have our EMD certifications.
Yeah.
Because you go through the courses, but
And that's something that interests me. I know when we were first put our dispatch center into place there at Byron, and we were doing fire, EMS, and police, and police was separate, and they were with the city, and we were a fire district. So it was a different concept that was developed there, but it was really rewarding because now one agency is receiving all the calls, and now they can combine, okay, police, fire, and EMS need to go this, or maybe it's just police, maybe it's just EMS. But being able to kind of coordinate all those resources together and the technologies that develop through that. I think your dad was a part of this with us when this was probably mid-'80s. So it goes back a few months ago. And we got to pilot the first dispatcher response system that had addresses. So you could type any part of an address in and it'd come up with a list. You could pick from the list. And this was all in the DOS world.
Wow.
And we had to enter all the addresses in. We had to, if we had keys to that place, if there was any special notes, if there's hazardous materials there, it was all came up on that screen. And then now to see where it is today, it's mind-blowing. I would imagine in your 4 years that you've seen quite a bit of difference. I don't know. Did 911 go through a regrade since you've been in?
That, and we got a whole new CAD system too.
Oh, that's right.
So I had to learn the old one, which I'm like, I don't even remember what it looks like. And then the new one. So it's a lot different. But we have all that same capability of the location notes and things like that. If there's any officer safety with an individual that lives at that address, or like you said, hazmat, you can put, there's, the options are endless of what we can put on an address.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that you built it.
Yeah, that was amazing. It was very rewarding to because we had direct access to the programmers, because they in a big city department, it was hard to find people that would be dedicated to it, that would actually want it to work.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we got it to work for a small agency, which was really awesome.
Wow. Yeah,
But I can't even imagine going through a 911 upgrade and the CAD. And it's amazing what you can do.
We still have a bunch of binders that have key holders and all that, but now it's like, we have it all on the computer though. But if the computer ever failed, we got the binders from a long time ago.
You almost have to have that backup.
Yeah.
Because there are failures.
There are.
In in our electronic world.
In a world it is.
Yeah, it is a world, all right. Speaking of world, our hour has gone by very quickly. You are very easy to interview and have on as a guest.
Well, thank you.
And I'm so proud of you, Taylor. You just growing up as a little girl and just to see the woman that you become and married a great guy, who's protecting the city of Rockford, and we're just so proud of what you do, and all of our telecommunicators. It is one of the greatest callings that there is, really. I mean, dial 911 and who answers but somebody who's going to get you help and talk you through things. So thank you for what you do. So maybe on that note, we'll just say thank you to all of our telecommunicators and your families. And the Ogle County Peer Support Network is here for all of us. That's all of us, myself included. And I would not hesitate if I were in need of help. I have no problem saying, Taylor, hey, I need some help with something, because I know you would do what you could.
Mm-hmm. I would.
So thank you. And Chief, we're gonna let this young lady get back to the dispatch room, back to work,
call.
Taylor. So hey, thank you, Taylor. We appreciate you.